The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Arizona desert as Jake Callahan steadied his breathing. Through the brass scope of his Springfield 1873, he watched Ray Blackwood count blood money at the outlaw camp below. 6 months. 6 months since Blackwood's gang had stormed into Red Rock's bank, while Jake's wife Mary and 10-year-old son William waited for him outside. 6 months since a stray bullet took Mary instantly, and another put William in the ground 3 days later. Jake's finger caressed the trigger. At 400 yards, the shot demanded perfection. He'd made harder kills during the war between the states. The warm desert wind kissed his cheek, 5 miles per hour from the west. He adjusted his aim slightly, exhaled half a breath, and prepared to send Blackwood to hell. Then he saw her. A woman emerged from one of the tents, hands bound behind her back. Even from this distance, Jake could see she was Apache and fighting like hell against her captors. She kicked one man hard enough to drop him before another slammed a rifle butt against her shoulder. She didn't scream, didn't beg, just glared with enough hatred to burn the desert to glass. "Damn it all," Jake muttered, easing off the trigger. The plan had changed. No clean shot with a hostage in play. As darkness fell, Jake worked his way down to the camp. Springfield exchanged for his Colt Army revolver. 20 years of hunting had made him a ghost when he needed to be. The first outlaw died silently, Jake's hunting knife ensuring he'd never draw another breath. The second turned just in time to catch Jake's bullet through his chest. The camp erupted. Blackwood grabbed the Apache woman, pressing a gun to her head as he retreated toward the horses. 2 more outlaws fired wildly at Jake's position. He dropped one with a clean headshot, but Blackwood was already mounting up, dragging the woman with him. "This ain't over, Callahan," Blackwood shouted. "I've known you were tracking me since Fort Davis. You're getting predictable, soldier boy." Jake cursed, dispatching the last outlaw with 2 rounds center mass. Too late to pursue in the darkness. He'd lost Blackwood again. The familiar cold rage settled in his chest as he searched the camp for supplies and information. Dawn found Jake following tracks heading northwest, toward Apache territory. He'd gone 2 miles when the hairs on his neck stood up. He dove from his horse just as an arrow whizzed past his ear. Rolling behind a boulder, Colt drawn, he scanned the ridgeline. "You track well for a white man," came a woman's voice, accent thick but English clear. The Apache woman from the camp emerged from behind a rocky outcrop, bow lowered but another arrow knocked. Blood had dried on her temple, but her eyes were clear and hard. "Where's Blackwood?" Jake demanded, gun still raised. "Gone to my uncle's camp," she replied. "He trades guns to my people for sanctuary." Jake kept his Colt steady. "And you escaped." "I was never captured." Her chin lifted slightly. "I let them take me to learn their plans." Jake's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Sarah Walking Storm, daughter of Chief Running Elk." She stepped closer, fearless despite his aimed weapon. "My uncle Black Knife poisoned my father to take leadership. Now he plans war with your people, using Blackwood's weapons." Jake lowered his gun slightly. "That's not my fight. It becomes your fight when Blackwood hides among my uncle's warriors." She studied him with intelligent, calculating eyes. "You hunt him for vengeance. I saw it in your eyes at the camp. He killed my family." Sarah nodded once. "Help me stop my uncle and expose his betrayal, and I will deliver Blackwood to you. Blood trail justice for us both." Jake holstered his Colt, weighing his options. Going alone into hostile Apache territory was suicide, but with her... "Why trust me?" he asked. "Because you could have shot me, didn't." Her eyes held his. "And because we both know the cost of lost family." 3 days later, they crouched beside the Colorado River as Jake scouted the crossing point. The water ran high and fast from spring snowmelt. "Your uncle's camp is 3 days beyond the crossing," Jake confirmed, lowering his spyglass. Sarah nodded. My uncle trades with white men like Blackwood, but kills most who approach. You need me to enter. And your plan is to walk in the front door? My plan is to return as a daughter of the chief. Blood rights still matter, even to Black Knife. The crack of a rifle split the air. Jake shoved Sarah down as a bullet kicked dirt where she'd been standing. 3 riders emerged from the tree line, Blackwood's men. Found you, Callahan, one shouted, working the lever on his Winchester. Jake drew and fired in one fluid motion, catching the lead rider in the throat. The man toppled from his horse as Jake rolled behind a fallen log. Sarah darted sideways, using the sparse brush for cover. 2 more shots splintered wood near Jake's head. He waited for the shooters to reload, then rose up, squeezing off 2 precise shots. The second rider clutched his chest, slumping over his saddle horn. The third man charged towards Sarah, pistol drawn. She waited until the last moment, then sprang like a mountain lion, catching his arm as he fired. The shot went wild as she pulled him from his horse, driving her knife up under his ribs with practiced efficiency. Jake approached as she wiped her blade clean on the dead man's shirt. You fight well, he observed. My father trained me as a warrior, not a wife. She searched the men's saddlebags, finding ammunition and jerky. Black Knife disapproved. That night beside a small fire in a protected ravine, Jake cleaned his Colt while Sarah stared into the flames. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. At Antietam, Jake said suddenly, I killed 23 men in a single day. Never saw their faces through my scope. He inspected the revolver cylinder. After the war, I swore I'd never kill again. Sarah studied him across the fire. Yet here you are. Here I am. Jake reassembled his pistol with practiced hands. What happens when we reach your uncle's camp? I claim my right to speak before the council. Present evidence of his treachery. What evidence? Jake asked. Sarah removed a small leather pouch from inside her dress. The poison herbs he used on my father, rare, not used for medicine. And this, she pulled out a scrap of paper with faded writing. My father's handwriting, his suspicions about his brother. He knew in the end. And if they don't listen, her eyes reflected the firelight, then we die. Jake nodded. Simple enough. The next morning, they rode toward a trading post visible in the distance. They needed supplies, and Jake hoped for information. The weathered building sat alone on the dusty plain, a way station between worlds. Inside, a grizzled trader eyed them suspiciously until Jake placed coins on the counter. As Sarah gathered supplies, the man leaned forward. You're Callahan, ain't you? He whispered. There's a bounty on your head in Red Rock. Sheriff Holden says you murdered 2 settlers. Jake's blood ran cold. What? Word is you're a dangerous man. $200, dead or alive. The trader glanced at Sarah, then back to Jake. Sheriff's been thick with some newcomers lately. One named Blackwood. Jake cursed under his breath. The trap was closing from both sides now. Outside, he relayed the news to Sarah. Your uncle's warriors to the north, bounty hunters to the south. Then we must move faster. Sarah mounted her horse. There's an old trapper's cabin in the foothills. We can plan there. At the abandoned cabin, Jake spread out his weapons. The Springfield, his Colt, a backup Derringer, and a Bowie knife that had seen him through the war. Sarah watched as he meticulously cleaned each one. Your skill with the rifle, she said. Show me. For the next hour, Jake taught her the basics of the Springfield. Her hands were steady, her eye keen. In return, she showed him how to move silently through brush, how to read tracks that would be invisible to most men. As dusk approached, Jake produced a small silver locket from his pocket. My wife marries, he said, holding it out to Sarah. For luck. She was brave like you. Sarah took it hesitantly. I cannot take it, Jake insisted. Where we're going, we need all the luck we can get. That night, as wind howled outside the cabin's thin walls, Sarah finally told him the full truth. "My father did not die of fever, as my people believe," she said quietly. "Black knife poisoned him slowly. Over many weeks. I found the evidence. Plants that do not grow for medicine. When I confronted him, he tried to kill me too." Jake watched her face in the firelight. "That's why you left." She nodded. "I went to warn the white settlement about his plans for war. That's when Blackwood's men captured me." Her eyes met his. "My uncle will burn the frontier unless he is stopped. Many will die on both sides." Jake understood then that their mission had grown beyond personal vengeance. Sometimes a man had to stand for something larger than himself. The next morning they encountered a Paiute hunter. After cautious introductions, Jake gave him a message to deliver to the cavalry outpost at Fort Whipple, warning of the impending Apache attack and Blackwood's involvement. The hunter, who had his own grievances with Black Knife's faction, agreed to carry the news for a silver dollar. The Apache camp sprawled across the valley floor, dozens of wiki-ups arranged in concentric circles. Jake watched from the ridgeline as Sarah prepared herself below. They had agreed. She would enter alone, playing the part of the prodigal daughter returned, while Jake found a sniper position overlooking the camp. "Remember," he told her, "sunset. I'll create a distraction on the north edge of camp." Sarah nodded, adjusting the locket around her neck. "If I do not survive—" "You will," Jake cut her off. "We both will." She touched his arm briefly, then began the long walk down to her people, shoulders slumped, limping slightly. A woman exhausted from hard travel. Jake watched until she was admitted into the camp, then circled wide to find his position. Through his scope, Jake observed the camp's activity. Blackwood and 3 remaining gang members stayed close to a large wiki-up near the center. Nearby, a stockpile of repeating rifles and ammunition boxes confirmed Sarah's intelligence. Enough firepower to raid a dozen settlements. When Sarah was brought before Black Knife, Jake tensed. Even at this distance, he could see the chief's cold fury. The interrogation lasted nearly an hour, with Sarah playing her part perfectly, the defiant niece, weakened but unbroken. As sunset approached, Jake noticed unexpected movement. A woman slipped from Black Knife's wiki-up and made her way to Sarah's side. They spoke briefly, heads close together. Jake recognized the signal. Sarah had found an ally, Raven, Black Knife's sister, who'd sent secret messages about her brother's betrayal. Jake positioned his rifle and waited for full darkness. When the central fires were built up for the evening meal, he squeezed off his first shot. The ammunition cache exploded spectacularly, sending warriors scrambling for weapons as flames erupted. In the chaos, Jake saw Sarah confront Black Knife before the entire tribe, holding high the leather pouch containing the poison herbs and her father's final message. Warriors hesitated, caught between loyalty and shocking revelation. Blackwood and his men used the confusion to make their escape, heading for the horses. Jake swung his rifle, dropping one outlaw with a clean shot through the spine. The second turned, firing wildly toward Jake's position, forcing him to duck behind rocks. When Jake looked again, Sarah was down, blood darkening her shoulder. Black Knife stood over her, knife raised. Blackwood was racing away on horseback, leading 2 pack horses laden with gold. The choice was made in an instant. Jake's shot caught Black Knife in the chest, dropping him before he could deliver the killing blow. Blackwood disappeared into the darkness as Jake abandoned his position, sliding down the rocky slope toward the camp. Gunfire erupted around him as he fought his way to Sarah's side. 2 warriors blocked his path. Both fell to his colt. He found her struggling to stand, Raven supporting her weight. "Blackwood," Sarah gasped. "He's getting away." "Let him run," Jake replied, tearing a strip from his shirt to bind her wound. "Your vengeance can wait." Jake lifted her in his arms. "You first." Raven led them through the chaos to horses at the edge of camp. "Go," she commanded. "I will deal with what remains here. The truth has been heard." They rode hard through the night, Sarah's blood soaking Jake's shirt. By dawn, they'd reached a secluded canyon where Jake had stashed medical supplies. As he cleaned and stitched her wound, Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness. "Why?" she murmured. "Why choose me over Blackwood?" Jake didn't answer immediately, focused on his work. Finally, he said, "Because saving a life matters more than taking one." 3 days later, Sarah could ride again. They followed Blackwood's trail to a narrow box canyon where he'd made camp, believing himself safe. Jake approached alone, Springfield in hand. When Blackwood emerged from his tent to relieve himself, he found himself staring down the rifle barrel. "Callahan," Blackwood's hand hovered near his holstered pistol. "Finally caught up, huh?" "It ends here," Jake said flatly. "Your wife begged, you know," Blackwood sneered. "Begged for the boy's life." Jake's finger tightened on the trigger, then relaxed. "You want me angry, want me to make a mistake. Worth a try." Blackwood's eyes darted, calculating odds. "So what now? You kill me? Think that'll bring them back?" "No." Jake's voice was steady. "Nothing brings them back. This isn't about vengeance anymore. It's about justice." Blackwood drew with surprising speed, but Jake was faster. 3 shots rang out in the canyon. Blackwood fell, clutching his chest, his unfired pistol tumbling from his fingers. Jake stood over him, watching the light fade from his eyes. The moment he dreamed of for 6 months had arrived. He had expected triumph, satisfaction, perhaps even peace. Instead, he felt only emptiness, a hollow void where hatred had burned for so long. "See you in hell," Blackwood whispered through bloodied lips. "Not today," Jake replied. "I've got reasons to stay." When the outlaw's breathing stopped, Jake searched his body, finding a folded letter that confirmed Sheriff Holden's involvement in the gang's activities. He also discovered a ledger detailing their crimes, evidence that would clear his name. "Was it worth it?" Sarah asked when he returned to their camp. Jake took a deep breath, the weight of vengeance finally lifting from his shoulders. "No," he admitted, "but it needed doing, not just for Mary and William, for everyone else he would have killed." For the first time in months, Jake slept without nightmares. 2 weeks later, they rode back into Red Rock side by side. Army cavalry had intercepted Black Knife's warriors before they could attack, thanks to Jake's warning sent with the Paiute hunter. Raven had established temporary leadership of the tribe, working toward renewed peace talks. Sheriff Holden was arrested when Jake produced the evidence of his conspiracy with Blackwood. The townspeople who had once whispered about Jake now nodded respectfully as he passed. His ranch, seized under false pretenses, was returned to him. Standing on Red Rock's main street, Sarah adjusted her father's ceremonial knife at her belt. "I must return to my people, help Raven rebuild what my uncle nearly destroyed." Jake nodded, understanding. "And I have a ranch that's been neglected too long." "I could stay," she offered, her expression carefully neutral. "As your wife." Jake looked toward the distant mountains. "I'm not ready for that. The ghosts are still too near." He met her eyes. "But I'd welcome a friend who visits when the seasons change." Sarah smiled, small but genuine. "Friends then." "Until the ghosts grow quieter." As she mounted her horse, Jake called out, "The locket! Keep it!" She touched the silver at her throat. "I will return it when you are ready to receive it, when your heart can hold more than memories." Jake watched her ride away, feeling something unfamiliar blossoming in his chest. Not happiness, not yet, but the possibility of it. The burden of vengeance had lifted, leaving room for something new to grow in its place. Later that day, a telegram arrived from the territorial marshal. Reports of a new outlaw gang operating along the northern border, raiding homesteads and threatening the fragile peace with the Apache. Jake read it twice, then tucked it into his pocket. Perhaps there was still work for a man with his particular skills. purpose beyond revenge. That evening, he sat on his porch, watching the sunset paint the western sky blood red. For the first time, he thought about tomorrow with something other than dread. He would rebuild the ranch, plant the fields Mary had always wanted, perhaps visit the Apache settlement when the corn was high. And if trouble came looking for him or threatened those under his protection, Jake Callahan would be ready, not for vengeance this time, but for justice. The difference he had learned was everything. A future earned one bullet at a time, but measured in lives saved rather than taken.